Hey guys, you're listening to the English Made Simple show. This is episode number 304, number 304, número 304. Welcome back, amigos y amigas. Welcome back. It's nice to be with you here again. This is your host, Milena, speaking. You're tuning in to the English Made Simple show. You can learn more about the EMS show and what it is all about when you visit englishmadesimple.net. If you want to listen to the podcast straight from the website, simply type in englishmadesimple.net/podcast. Just type that into your browser and voila, you're there. And don't forget to check out all our past episodes while you're there and check out all the amazing resources to help you accelerate your English learning while you're visiting englishmadesimple.net. Wow, can you remember all that? Hope so. So, in my last episode, I did kind of hint that I'm going to do an episode on artificial intelligence, but that's not going to be today. So I'm still collecting information and researching about potential artificial intelligence apps and tools that exist nowadays. And there seems to be so many apps that can help you with your English. So you can learn English now with AI. So I'll release that episode when it's ready, as soon as it's ready, okay? But for now, I'd like us to expand on the last episode because I said some words in that episode. I said a lot of words, actually, that some of you may not be familiar with. Some of you will be going, oh, what? What did she just say? Let me go through some of those phrases and expressions with you today. So those things might be new to you. So I'd like to elaborate on some of those expressions that we covered in the last episode. And one thing I wanted to highlight is today, towards the end of the show, I'll give you a chance to repeat some of the phrases after me. So you'll get a chance to practice your speaking. You can speak after me. So you learn some phrases and then you'll repeat after me, okay? So I call this Repeat After Me segment. I created this segment to assist you in enhancing your English language skills. We will practice by repeating sentences together. I will say a sentence and then you can say the same sentence after me. That's what this segment is all about. This way you can practice and improve your pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. I will say each sentence twice, just so you know, so that you can follow my pronunciation and correct pronunciation of each phrase. You should then repeat that sentence after me so you can practice along. That's the idea. Okay, amigos y amigas, let's get cracking with today's show. So let's revisit some phrases from the previous episode and let me explain in a bit more detail what those phrases mean. So I think I've got 3 phrases here. Yes. Let's start with phrase number 1. So the phrase that I mentioned in the last episode, which I think you may not be familiar with, is let's touch base, okay? Let's touch base, or let's get the ball rolling. So what does that mean? So there's 2 phrases actually. Let's touch base or let's get the ball rolling. So I'm going to explain these 2 phrases. So let's see. What let's touch base means is let's meet and discuss. That's what it means in other words, okay? When someone says, let's touch base, they mean let's meet and discuss. And the other one was, let's get the ball rolling, which means let's start working. Let's start off with the first phrase that I mentioned, let's touch base. The phrase, let's touch base, is an informal expression that means to get in contact or connect with someone to discuss or update each other on a particular matter. It suggests the need to communicate and exchange information or progress. So let's put that in a sentence. Maybe that sounds better. Example sentence here is, we haven't talked in a while. Let's touch base next week to discuss the project's latest developments and address any concerns. So we haven't talked in a while. Let's touch base next week to discuss the project's latest developments and address any concerns. Okay, does it make sense now, amigos y amigas? Alrighty, let me share an example of the next one, the let's get the ball rolling expression. For example, let's use it in a sentence. Alright everyone, let's get the ball rolling by discussing our ideas for the new project. Alright everybody, let's get the ball rolling by discussing our ideas for the new project. So that's an example. That's how we use it in an example. The phrase let's get the ball rolling is an expression that means to initiate or start an activity or process. In this example that I just shared with you, it suggests starting the discussion or taking action on the new project. So let's get the ball rolling by discussing our ideas. It implies the need to begin the task or move things forward to make progress. Basically, let's just start. Okay, hope that makes sense. Let's look at another one you might need help understanding. So another phrase or maybe another term I covered in the last episode that I think needs a bit more explaining. Actually, there's two terms. I can't count. So I've got two new words that I mentioned in the last episode. So number one was compromise and deadline. Deadline. So I've used these two words and I think some of you might not be familiar with these two words, okay? Let's go with deadline. So deadline, it's one word, refers to the specific date or time by which a task, project, or assignment must be completed. It represents the final submission or delivery time and is often said to ensure timely completion of work. Let's use it in a sentence. Maybe that's going to make it better. Okay, here's an example sentence. The deadline for submitting the report is tomorrow at 5 p.m. So make sure you finish and submit it before then. The deadline for submitting the report is tomorrow at 5 p.m. So make sure you finish and submit it before then. Alrighty, hope that makes sense, okay? The next word you may be unfamiliar with is compromise, the word compromise. Compromise means finding a fair solution between two people, let's say, where both sides give up a little to agree and solve a problem. It's about finding a way that everyone is okay with by making some changes or finding a middle point. It's like agreeing. And now let's use it in a sentence and hopefully that's gonna make it better. Okay, that's gonna make it easier to understand. Here's an example sentence. In order to meet everyone's needs, we had to compromise on the project timeline and adjust the deadlines. Here's that word again, deadline. Let me repeat that example for you. In order to meet everyone's needs, we had to compromise on the project timeline and adjust the deadlines. Does this make sense, amigos y amigas? Cool bananas. Let's go to the next thing. What's the next thing I wanted to clarify to you guys? Radio. The next thing was the two acronyms. The two acronyms that may be unfamiliar to you if you don't work in accounting or human resources. So the two acronyms are ROI and KPI. These are industry-specific jargon, okay? ROI, I'm spelling an acronym here, or KPI, okay? 3 letters. So ROI stands for return on investment, and KPI stands for key performance indicators. Now let's use it in a sentence and then I'll explain a bit more what these acronyms actually mean. Okay, let me put this in an example for you. I had to ask my colleague for clarification when they mentioned the term ROI in the meeting because I wasn't familiar with what it stood for. I had to ask my colleague for clarification when they mentioned the term ROI in the meeting because I wasn't familiar with what it stood for. Another thing I just wanted to add here is if you ever hear an acronym, three-letter acronym or whatever, any letter acronym, don't be afraid to ask for clarification. Don't be afraid to ask, oh, sorry, what does that stand for? What does it mean? What does ROI mean? So if you don't understand it, feel free to speak up and just ask in the meeting, sorry, can you please explain what that means? Okay? Not everybody will understand acronyms. That's a given. All right. Let's try the next one, the ROI, which stands for return on investment. So ROI refers to the profitability. So if you're in accounting, you might actually know what this acronym is. So it refers to the profitability or financial gain achieved from an investment. It is a measure used to evaluate the efficiency or success of an investment by comparing the return or profits or gains to the cost of that investment. In simple terms, ROI shows how much profit or benefit you can expect to get in relation to the money you put into something. So what is the return on investment? How about we use this in another example? Maybe that's going to make it easier. Maybe something simpler so you can remember it better. Here we go. We invested $10,000 in marketing campaigns, and the return on investment was $30,000 in increased sales. Okay, so we paid or invested $10,000 in marketing campaigns, running advertising, $10,000, and then we got the return on investment that was $30,000. Okay, so it was a good return on investment. We gained money when we spent money. Okay, right. So hopefully that makes sense. So the next acronym is Key Performance Indicators. KPI. KPIs are specific metrics or measurements used to assess the performance or success of an individual, of somebody, maybe a team. It could be a team, not just an individual, a department. You can assess the whole organization in achieving its goals. KPIs help track progress and provide a clear understanding of how well objectives are being met. They are typically selected based on their relevance to the organization's objectives and can vary across different industries and areas of focus. Essentially, KPIs are like checkpoints or markers that help evaluate performance and ensure that things are on track. How are we tracking? So it's a way to measure things, okay? It's a way to measure performance of somebody, a team, organization, or anything, okay? Are we close to our goals? So now let's use the full KPI in a sentence. Here's an example for you guys. Our team's key performance indicator is to increase customer satisfaction ratings by 10% within the next quarter. Okay, so our team's key performance indicator is to increase customer satisfaction ratings by 10% within the next quarter. It is a simple example, amigos y amigas. I'll repeat it one more time. Our team's key performance indicator is to increase customer satisfaction ratings by 10% within the next quarter. You following me so far, amigos y amigas? Great. I think this should be enough for today's episode because it might get overwhelming if we continue. Before we wrap up today's show, let's try to repeat some phrases together. So I'll say the sentence first and then you repeat after me, okay? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. The first sentence reads like this. Let's get the ball rolling by discussing our ideas for the new project. Let's get the ball rolling by discussing our ideas for the new project. And now on to the second sentence. Try this one. Let's touch base next week to discuss the project's latest developments. Let's touch base next week to discuss the project's latest developments. And the last sentence for today, amigos y amigas, try to repeat the following sentence. It's very short. The deadline for submitting the report is tomorrow at 5 p.m. The deadline for submitting the report is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Great, that wasn't too hard, was it, amigos y amigas? Awesome, thank you for listening to the EMS show. If you'd like to get transcripts to this show, maybe it's easier to follow with transcripts. You can go to englishmadesimple.net/transcript. And if you want to listen to this podcast from the website, you can go to englishmadesimple.net/podcast anytime. And you can continue listening to the rest of the episodes while you're there. It's been a pleasure and I hope you've learned something new today. If something wasn't clear, be sure to send me an email, let me know so I can help. You've been jamming with Milena from English Made Simple. Until next time, hasta la próxima!